The president will speak to the nation tonight on television about the shuttle tragedy. He has sent Vice President Bush and the director of NASA down to Florida to get together with people down there to find out just what has happened, to convey the president's sincere sympathies to the families of the astronauts who were involved. White House spokesman Larry Speaks called this a tragedy of major proportion, but said that there is no finger pointing at NASA in any sense, that the safety record of NASA has been remarkable up to this point. He said indeed that the president's only concern right now is to find out what has happened, to express his concern, and that's the primary thought on the president's mind at this point. One other note, First Lady Nancy Reagan was also watching television this morning when the tragedy occurred. Her remarks, as conveyed by her, the First Lady's press office, were that it's time we should start praying that there is some thread of hope. And while the White House will not say and is not in a position to describe the fate of the 7 astronauts, there is really very little hope here. Bernie?
Thank you, Charles. Charles Bierbauer reporting live from the White House. Joining us now at Newsday, John Logston with the Science Policy Program at George Washington University here in the nation's capital. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, we've been taking risks in front of the world really since Alan Shepard's flight in May of 1961. Even at that point, when the first American was going to go into space, there was a major debate of whether to do it live in front of a camera. And the decision then was, yes, that was the kind of program we were going to have, recognizing the risks. The risks now have arrived. Unlike the Soviets, who only announced their manned flights after they're successful, we do this as a sense of common accomplishment, recognizing the risks. Unfortunately, the risks occurred.
That's an interesting point. At that briefing in the Roosevelt Room, President Reagan, he came in and he talked to us for about 12 minutes, a little over, about 75 minutes ago. And I asked the president, I said, philosophically, Mr. Reagan, do you take any solace in the fact that the U.S. space program, as we know it, has been safer than the Soviets, that the Soviets have lost many more people? And President Reagan looked down the table at me and he said, quote, it's something to cling to right now, but it doesn't lessen the grief, unquote.
No, not at all. This is a risky business yet. We're on the edges of human exploration and human achievement. We're taking the kind of risks required to do exciting, adventurous, and valuable things. And everybody that was involved in this, from Christa McAuliffe to Commander Scobee, knew quite well that it was a risk and were willing to undertake that risk.
Also today, Mr. Reagan underscored that a reporter asked him how he felt about the fact that the teacher was on board, and President sort of said, in fact, he said, it's the last frontier. Those were his words.
Indeed. I think the identification of the public with the fact that one of them, an ordinary citizen, happened to be aboard this mission, not the 24 that went before it, I think broadens the tragedy and therefore is bad luck is understating it by several orders of magnitude. There were 6 others who had dedicated their careers to the shuttle program on this, and their loss for the program is equally as great. For the country, I guess the identification is with Christa, though.
Have you any fear whatsoever that NASA's outstanding record with safety and achievement will be lost in the wake of a backlash because of this tragedy?
I hope not. That would be totally irrational behavior. This country is capable of behaving irrationally in crisis situations, and I think Mr. Reagan has said that what is needed now is to find out what happened, fix it, and go ahead with the program, and that's exactly the right response, that there are too many things worth doing that the people that were on this mission had dedicated themselves to stop, to say it's not worth doing, that because of this accident the program will not go ahead, would be, among other things, a tragedy for those that were involved in this accident.
What about our national sense of presumption? We Americans over the past decade or so became so attuned to the space program operating functionally very well, being well funded, safety being way up there. It's almost as if we've taken this very dangerous program for granted. We never had tragedies per se, except the ones that we've been reporting on prior to this one today. And it's as if we didn't watch these launches after a couple of years because they were so routine. I suppose maybe we should have been reminded with each launch that this is very dangerous, and we're very fortunate.
Well, but it is supposed to be routine. That's the idea of the program now, is that each launch is not an adventure. Of course it is for the individuals involved. So is driving to work in the morning or getting on a 747. The necessity is making sure the resources, the people, the funding to assure constant safety is available. To shortcut the program would enhance the chance of something like this happening.
Certainly there will be a full-scale, full-court press kind of investigation. But based on the videotapes you've seen, based on what you know about this vehicle, what's your hunch as to what happened?
Well, first of all, I haven't seen the videotapes, and I'm not sure I want to, since I wasn't exposed to them in the first place. I think it's almost irresponsible to begin to say, well, it was external tank rupturing, or because it was cold, or some of the other things that I've heard already. The people who are close in, who have the data, are the people that ought to say what happened. There's, of course, a pressing curiosity, but there's not much we can do about it, and I think it's, as I say, almost irresponsible for those not close to the technical character of what went on to be running around talking about what happened.
Your reservation is appreciated. John Longston with the Science Policy Program at George Washington University here in the nation's capital.
Thank you.
Now, let's go to our man in Atlanta, Tom Mintier. Tom?
Thank you, Bernie. For those who may be just joining us, let's turn the clock back a few hours now and take you to a replay from the Kennedy Space Center just a few moments before Challenger lifted off at 11:39 after several hours of delay because of ice problems on the structure surrounding the shuttle. They sent a crew of 8 men out to knock that ice off. The main engines have started here. It appeared everything was normal.
1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Roger, roll, Challenger.
The roll maneuver taking place. Everything still looked normal about 20 seconds into flight. This is the VIP viewing area, taking pictures as they normally do every time there is a shuttle flight.
Engines beginning throttling down now at 90.
Everything appeared normal here.
Velocity 2,257 feet per second. Altitude 4.3 nautical miles. Downrange distance 3 nautical miles.
In a second, they were ordered to throttle up. And then the last words from the shuttle.
Throttling up. 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go with throttle up.
Roger, go with throttle up. 1 minute 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
Huge ball of fire and the solid rockets veering out of control. One went left and then curved. Here's the slow motion replay. You see a fire between the shuttle and the external tank. And then an explosion right at the point where the shuttle and the tank are connected, and a huge fireball. Recovery efforts. Here are the spectators watching as the shuttle cleared the pad. There is Christa McAuliffe's parents, Ed and Grace Corrigan. They were told by a NASA official, walked up to them and said the vehicle had exploded. Mrs. Corrigan, stunned, looked back at him and repeated his words as a question. The vehicle has exploded, and then they were led away. Let's go now to Bernie Shaw in Washington. Bernie?
Thank you, Tom. The chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, Senator Pete Domenici of New Mexico, is in the Senate Radio TV gallery. Let's listen in.
Very human, wonderful people. The experts, the astronauts, are very marvelous aviators and technical people. They did their share. Something just happened, and we don't know what it is yet.
Senator,
Okay.
did you see the explosion, and what was your first reaction?
Yeah, it was purely accidental. I came back from the White House, was sitting behind my desk, doing some other work, and a staffer walked in and said, it blew up. And I said, what blew up? And they said, the space shuttle. I said, on the ground? No, in space. We turned on the TV, and there they were replaying it. So I was not watching it live, but it was just the same as if it was live, because I'd heard very little before, maybe 40 seconds. As it did that, I really couldn't believe that it was happening. I kept looking for something to come out the other end, and it didn't. So it was a rather amazing sight for me, and in fact, I thought maybe it was something else for a while. Okay? Thank you all very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Members of the 99th Congress still reacting to this tragedy. You've often heard the word redundancy in our space systems. Lots of safety precautions taken, lots of safety procedures involved, escape procedures. Tom Mintier tells us about it.
Bernie, there used to be ejection seats that had parachutes on the space shuttle. Recently, as the program advanced and they had more and more shuttles online, they removed those seats to allow more room for scientific experiments and other things to be in the space shuttle. The investigation, of course, is going to go on for a long, long time, barely just getting started now. All really that NASA has right now to work with is some of the data that was going on for that first 1 minute in space that was sent down by a downlink dish from the Challenger into their recording banks. They say they have secured all of that information, and they, of course, will be going over it. There is a contingency plan when something goes wrong on the space shuttle. It's something that the people at NASA never really talked too much about. The last time was when we had the engines of the shuttle shut down on the pad last summer, and then people started asking the questions, what would happen if something went wrong? Here is a freeze frame of where it appears a fire broke out between the external tank and the space shuttle. In a diagram, you can see how the external tank is connected in several places to the shuttle. Here, in this book, shows two areas where explosive charges are placed by NASA, in that point and in that point. There is also a propellant line that runs down here to supply the shuttle's main engines. Now, not saying that the craft was triggered from the ground, but that contingency exists. If the shuttle had veered way off course, a range officer at Cape Canaveral Air Force Base could have thrown a switch that would have sent an encrypted signal to the shuttle to blow it up. It is a contingency plan that NASA has on its books, but it appeared from the video and from everything we know so far that the shuttle was not veering wildly off course, that it was continuing downrange to a point about 9 miles. Of course, the investigation is just getting started, and it may take months or even years to know what happened because so little will be left.